I'm envisioning this world of, we're continuing to push in two directions. And one is sort of this AI world. And I think as we push in that direction, there's going to be a huge appetite for human connection. And as a brand, I envision us leaning into that human connection piece, because the one thing we'll always need is we'll always need each other, and we'll always need food to bond over.
Welcome to another episode of the Growth League podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Clark, and today I am speaking with Teale Orban. He is the Vice President of Marketing at OEB Breakfast Co, or more commonly known in this area of the world as OEB. It's definitely our team's favorite breakfast and brunch spot. Good luck if you can get in. Come early, get on the wait list. Teale, thanks so much for spending some time with me.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
So to give some context to the listeners, those that don't know you or don't know the brand, tell us a little bit about your journey as a marketer, as a marketing leader, to the point of where you are today with OEB, and what's kept you at OEB, what's kept the fire alive for you as a leader, as a marketer.
Yeah, awesome. So honestly, I've been in the marketing industry for, who knows how many years now, let's say 16. And honestly, with all the companies I kind of had worked with before, I always felt like I was always at the end of something. I was always coming into like the end of something. And I really wanted to be part of something that was growing, something that had this opportunity to kind of build. And so I had the opportunity to come over to a company called Define Group. And Define Group sort of what they would do is kind of partner with wonderful, owners and founders, and they would look to grow their business. And so, they kind of brought the expertise in of like growing a business, taking them from, one to, I always say 1 to 100 quicker than, they could kind of take themselves from 1 to 2. And so, so I got that opportunity. It just sounded really cool to me. The person that brought me in, he just kind of says, I hear you constantly talking about this like desire to grow, and I think this is a perfect opportunity for you. And so at that time, it was more of a leap of faith because really I didn't know much about the brand or brands that they were working with, but I just had this feeling in my gut that there was something special there. And so, that's kind of how I came into the brand. And at the time I was working with OEB, I was working with another brand. And then sort of kind of got brought on full time, just, right around, honestly, when everything kind of shut down in March of 2020. And I've been now with OEB for 5.5 years. There's something that, the one thing with OEB that I've just kind of never seen in a brand is like there's just this energy, and there's just like this inherent belief by everybody in it that this is a lot bigger than, this is just something big. And I think that's what's just kind of kept me there. Like just there's, I think we feel like even though we've grown quickly, we'll be at 20 locations by the end of this year, that like we're just at the start of something big, something bigger. So.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be just as a brand, as a company, it doesn't have to just be the thing that you sell or the product or service you offer. It doesn't have to be more than just, or it doesn't have to be just breakfast and brunch, right? And you're right. I don't actually know what it is for me personally. I mean, the food has to be great. But besides that, there is a different energy when you walk in. There's a sense of almost like craftsmanship to the curation of the menu, the way it looks, the way I don't know, and I'm not using the right terms, but there is something different. I don't know what it is. Maybe you guys have been able to define it.
Honestly, what it is like, Chef Morneau, when he founded the company, it was just such a culinary focus, and that's always been the focus. And so I think that's just what's so different. You look at these other brands and, you talk to other marketing leads and they're going like, I'm picking the direction for this menu. So that means it's going to be aesthetic. It's going to be what's just super hot and cool right now, right. Those kind of things, which is wonderful in the marketing world. But what you're trying to achieve then is just finding the product that you can best sell. Whereas with OEB, it's always been like, how do we achieve culinary excellence in this segment And that's where everything kind of stems from. And then from there, we kind of, the chefs, they are the ones who are creating, Chef Morneau and our culinary team, they're the ones that are creating the menu. They're creating the menu changes, all that stuff like that. They're driving it. And then we go, cool, now we'll market it, sort of thing like that. So I think that's ultimately the difference, that you don't see that, you don't see that everywhere. So
totally. Well, especially you can go to a place where you can get reasonably priced stuff. It's a normal breakfast place, but there's duck fat confit on the menu, right? So it's like,
yeah.
So just if that can put it into the picture for more clarity for those listening, it's a special place. So it's definitely a special place for our team. All of our new hires, all of our special occasions, all of our saying goodbye, saying hello, and actually 2 employees of ours got engaged together. And the first time they announced that they were dating was at OEB. They walked up hand in hand. I was like, what the is so anyways, it's a special place for us.
Well, I feel like I think we got to do something with that. So I don't know, we can talk afterwards.
Yeah, we'll figure that out.
I love that.
Yeah, it was awesome. The announcement. Everyone's like, where's HR?
Oh, that's amazing.
It was good. So I'm going to jump around here a little bit, but again, the purpose of this show is to get inside of the unique perspectives and experience sharing of you, Teale, as a marketing leader. So you can draw on experiences from both OEB and and past experiences to answer or to discuss any of these topics. The first one I want to talk about is currently, what does your team look like from a infrastructure standpoint? What roles are played, and how do you guys come together as a team and a way of working?
So right now, our team is, we have a couple of team members in Edmonton. We have a team member in Vancouver, and then myself, I'm actually in Saskatchewan. And so a lot of the stuff that we do is digital, and I think there's some pros and some cons to that. One thing that's really kind of, wonderful with that is, we have to be kind of task focused. And so we're sort of, able to, we have to set processes and systems in place to, be able to actually, achieve the goals that we kind of set. That team is made up of three different persons. So one's our marketing specialist, and then we have 2 engagement specialists. And so the marketing specialist really takes on like the roles of, here's the brand, here's how we're going to grow the brand, and how we're going to accomplish it sort of at like a national level, and sort of manages it overall. We work really kind of closely, as this has kind of been an unvented position, taking on a lot of the roles of like myself when I was the director of marketing, kind of taking on a lot of pieces of that. And then, something that we've been really, really working hard at is trying to figure out how to, be relevant within each one of our communities. And that's just always so important for us, that like, as we grow, we want to maintain this connection to our communities, but like at an individual level. So like if we're in Langley, we want to connect with people in Langley. If we're in Toronto, we want to connect with people in Liberty Village. And that kind of flows throughout all. And so, it's very challenging to do that. And so we just found it really important to invest in that through these engagement specialists. And so they work, they kind of have territories, and they work on a store to store level to try and find opportunities for them to connect with that community and just become a deeper part of that. And that could be through, just cool experiential marketing promotions, or like, a charity promotions, those kind of things. And so that's sort of how, that's kind of the structure of our team currently. Does that sort of answer that question?
No,
do you want to elaborate at all? Yeah.
No, for sure. What about external partners? Do you have external partners you work with, and how do they integrate with your team?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do. We've found a really good company that has managed our our digital advertising. So currently, that's something that we do outsource, and then we also have like a creative agency that does a lot of stuff with our creative. So helping be, I guess maybe I don't know if the creative arm is the right way to put it, but sort of the design arm of like our creative team internally. So that's sort of been the way that we've been able to kind of manage, and be as agile as possible. Whether some of that stuff sort of starts to work itself into the brand a little bit more over time could be something that, you know, we kind of look at. But yeah, there's always a kind of opportunity to work with, you know, third-party providers. I think where it is really cool is, you know, when you just start talking about like your video and your content and those pieces, you know, if we can find a third party that understands our brand, then they can give us a different perspective that really kind of challenges the pieces that we're pushing forward. Where sometimes when you manage everything internally, you're only as good as, you know, yourself. And it's probably kind of ignorant to think that's the best way to go about it. So yeah.
Well, it's a topic I bring up a lot. In your experience, since you have the benefit of working with good partners, what has been your recipe for success in facilitating good partnerships? Because that's not always the case. It's not always as lucky as you sometimes. But what have you found to be things that you've either said or done together that have facilitated really good, strong marriage between the two parties?
That's a really good question. You know, I feel like this might come off like the obvious one, but I feel like really good communication is important. And what I mean in that is like, it's not just like, hey, are your Asana tasks, you know, are they being clicked off or not? To me, what I've always found is important is like, and I really kind of challenge myself on this, because I think as I would say as Canadians, like we're very passive aggressive and beat around the bush instead of actually just like getting to the punch. And so I really kind of challenged myself from the last couple of years since me kind of becoming in this role, being like direct with people. And I found that has really helped. So that means more challenging conversations. But, you know, what I would always hate is for us to, you know, cease partnership with somebody or, cease working with somebody and not have them know why. And so I think that's huge. And also like to not just immediately, you know, there's certain red flags that probably are things that you don't want to move forward with, but with our, you know, with our partners that feel like they can be longer term to, you know, kind of address the issues immediately. You know, so that our expectations is the same as what they understand of our expectations versus us having an unrealistic expectation that they can't achieve because they don't even know what it is.
Right. Yeah, no, that's good. You know, you've referenced a couple of times your growth as a leader, both of the function and of people. What would you say are your top strengths or your superpowers that others would say this is Teale's superpower as it relates to marketing? You're just putting you on the spot, and I teed it up by saying, what would others say about you? So you don't have to.
Oh my goodness, that takes a lot of self-awareness, and and like all humility out the door, which is a real struggle for me. Maybe I'll tell you what I hope they'll say about me. Okay. I hope that I hope that kind of my team feels comfortable and confident that they can reach out to me about anything. I really try, whether I do a good job of this or not, of you know, if we set an expectation together and then we can kind of work towards that together. And so I really kind of try to be calm in my approach of like providing feedback, try to be direct in that feedback, but also understanding that we're not perfect, like we're just all human beings, and that we can get the best out of each other by understanding that mistakes will happen, and that is always an opportunity to grow. And I think that, like, I kind of hope that's, you know, I don't know if that really answers the question, but I hope my team, okay, yeah.
That's a great way to answer it, is how you hope people perceive you. I mean, because I think at the origination of that, it probably is what you feel that you're strongest at, right? Like that when you show up to work, to your job, to fulfilling your accountability, what do you lean on the most as being like, I know these are my aces in the pocket. This is my superpower, you know?
Yeah.
Whatever that might be. So.
Yeah, and I do think I hope it's the ability to kind of speak to people where they're at and like understand kind of what they need to be successful, you know. And so sometimes it's obvious to me, and sometimes it's a challenge, you know, because everyone has different personalities, and just understanding that there's different motivations for different people, I think is been a real growth area for me where it's like, oh, okay, that, so and so really thrives when we communicate in this capacity, and so and so is driven by other factors, and so you have to acknowledge what is driving them and why they're doing the things that they're doing, so that they can still execute the other pieces, even though that their strength is maybe somewhere else. So
yeah, no, that's great. You've been there for a while. You've evolved in your role, accountability. What is your accountability defined as in your mind today? Like if when all the dust settles and some balls got dropped or some didn't, and at the end of the day, what is the thing that you personally hold yourself accountable to in your current function?
As a marketer or as like a manager?
As a VP of marketing for OEB, because I think there's a lot of different and variant definitions across industry, across types of companies. But for you, title aside, what's your main accountability?
Oh, that's a really good question. I believe every franchise partner would say sales and driving sales. I think that's ultimately that has to sort of be at the forefront of what we're doing, right? Is just an understanding of the success of each individual. The success of each individual store. And so I think profitability doesn't necessarily fall on like in my role, but people through the door does. And I think we talked about this a little bit, but when we open, we've been very fortunate, and I would love to take all the credit for this, but I absolutely can't, that we opened busy because of this great brand that has been built since 2009 by Chef Morneau, and then it's been taken on by each individual franchise partner that has created this, created the same experience across, each location. And that's just huge kudos to, our ops teams and our culinary teams that all fall under that and support, each franchise partner in doing that. So I think that that's just us opening busy is because of a great name, but then everyone executing at a level that is almost seamless across the brand, which is, when we're not holding corporate stores is a challenge. And so, I think ultimately keeping those sales where they're at is, I would love to grow. Obviously we always want to grow and continue to grow our sales. But our stores are fortunate enough that a lot of them still have a 3-hour lineup on the weekend, a 2-hour lineup on the weekend. And so, taking a 2-hour lineup and making a 3-hour lineup does not necessarily make more sales. A 3-hour lineup making a 4-hour lineup doesn't necessarily, increase profitability. But what we can do really well now is, and what we're really focusing on, the ever-changing world of technology and evolving, AI and all this stuff, is the human side, and our motto is fill the soul, right? And so I had to wear the shirt today.
That's my bowl. That's my go-to bowl is the soulful bowl.
The soul bowl. Yeah, exactly. And there's so much in that, right? And I think it's how do we continue to be that piece that, how do we continue to fill the soul for people, even if it's just, when they're picking up the food and they're just having a bite for 30 minutes, how do we continue to create this, this experience that people really connect with. And so to me, there's the immediate need of just, maintaining that, but also getting deep into our communities and really being support part of that, so that, that 3-hour lineup is still a 3-hour lineup in 5 years from now and 10 years from now. Right. Because we're doing such a good job of what we're doing, because we're connecting with people and holding ourselves accountable. So
yeah, no, that's great, man. I think that I think a lot of marketing leaders would say, job is done if I fulfilled the lineup, or butts and seats, but a previous guest on our first season told me that we were talking about growth. Talking about growth of a company, but like a tree, at some point you're only going to grow as high as you are. But I think what you guys are focused on is the depth and strength of roots, right? And kind of that, what other role can OEB play in our communities and in the world, right? And that's critical for a marketing function. But not
Yeah.
many marketers have the luxury of saying, well, how do we take a 3-hour line and turn it into a 5-hour line, right? You got to get
Yeah.
creative.
Yeah.
What your accountability is then.
I love that. The tree analogy is perfect. That's great. Like I think that maybe helps. That honestly probably helps me in my own personal vision of just understanding, yeah, how deep can those roots go, you know? So, and honestly, what's wonderful in that is with the franchise partners is that, you know, we aren't just a corporate entity. These people live and serve and eat and exist and in these communities themselves. And so I think that is it's a wonderful aspect to it that I don't necessarily think we always realize, or, you know, sometimes there's like a bad connotation towards it, but it's like, no, like these are real, you know, yeah, these are community people investing in their community and serving up something that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, we won't talk about what the challenges in working with franchisees are because they're wonderful people and they're great business owners and
Zero challenges.
It's all good. Yeah. But yeah, we both have a lot of experience in that, so it's good. Okay, so what I want to ask you is without getting into anything specific as it relates to numbers or anything like that, but for you, the art or the activity of budgeting or the concept of budgeting, how do you think about budgeting? You know, so like, let's say you're going into a brand new year or a new fiscal or new whatever period, you have a blank slate. Again, no details on numbers, but just like, how do you get yourself in the mindset for that task that we all have to deal with as marketing leaders?
That's a really good question. You know, I think it's a really good question. You know, I think what I try to really understand is, you know, I think there's kind of, first of all, sit back and understand sort of our needs. I think there's going to be basic needs that you just kind of have to sort of have, right? There's going to be sort of your advertising needs and that kind of thing. And then kind of from there, taking like, you know, what we have, you know, in addition, spend and determining where the best focus is for that. So, you know, I guess it's probably more easy to talk about like, you know, where our focus or where we're kind of focusing now. But yeah, so we sort of have like, hey, this is going to be, you know, our promotional calendar for the year. This is what it looks like. And we can, you know, just kind of plan to sort of advertise, at that level. We sort of have kind of an idea of like a percentage per store that we sort of go like, okay, when we add a new store, this is how much more we add into that market, et cetera, so that it, you know, kind of works out all evenly. But then from there, there's, you know, trying to figure out sort of what that need looks like. And, you know, for us right now, there's this big, you know, the story piece is kind of huge in the sense that like, you know, as we get deeper into our communities, it is very important that we tell those stories. And so that's kind of where we're, you know, looking to, you know, kind of focus our budgets and everything now. You know, there's only so many Facebook ads you can kind of run, right? And but like, how do we build better content, better stories to sort of, you know, again, you said, deepen those roots within our communities. So
that's interesting. Like with your franchise partners, they all contribute to a national ad fund or a marketing fund.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So obviously, you got to create some parity and some fairness, right? Because it is. I'm sure it's a percentage of like sales or whatever.
Yeah.
How do you explain or justify the value or get the belief high amongst franchise partners when a big chunk of your marketing effort is storytelling and brand building and things that are a few parts removed from?
That's a good question.
You know, butts and seats, because obviously you've created that belief, and it's a testament to the franchise partners as well, as they know what they're buying into. But
yeah,
how do you kind of?
So this is a really good, relevant question right now. Something that, so honestly, it is a challenge to kind of communicate that, right? And it's something that I struggled with for years, because, you know, how do you kind of how do you kind of communicate that value? And so what we've done, and as our engagement specialists came on board, we started developing a kind of reporting tool that, we call it our engagement reports. And it essentially breaks down per month what we're doing nationally, all the platforms we're on, what kind of traction we're getting on that. And so it breaks that down naturally, and then each engagement specialist, they then fill it out for their store and how their store is performing on that. So they can see in that what's they can see sort of what the traction is we're getting again nationally, but then they can also see everything that we're doing, all the activities that we're doing, and then they share like views for their specific store activities. They share redemptions, they share all those kind of pieces. And so that's kind of been the biggest thing. Cause I think we're all kind of sort of guilty of, what I don't see, I don't believe is happening, sort of thing like that. And it's fair. Like, I do that all the time. I even now that I've kind of started to remove myself from some of like the actual doing of like social and everything like that, I kind of go, hey, did we even do this, right? And it's just, well, that's not fair to my team. So, and it's also not fair to ask for people to constantly be diving into each individual piece that we're doing unless we're bringing that information to them. So that's been that's sort of been the way that we've really sort of gone about, I guess kind of tackling that challenge and providing just more transparency and more insight to our franchise partners on a more consistent basis. And that's been met with a lot of positivity. I think just being more transparent never hurts anybody. And it's honestly a model that we run with our brand as a whole outside of that, right? We just try to be transparent on what we're serving, what we're doing. And so it just fits, very well. And then with that, then you can, any questions can be asked and we can kind of, tackle that then too. So again, it comes back to kind of communication internally with your team, but then internally with your partners. If everybody knows what you're doing, then I think it at least sets you up for success.
What would you claim as being the strongest and the weakest component of the overall marketing system at OEB?
The strongest and the weakest component of it. What's that?
I told you it's gonna be tough questions, but I think this is, and you're great, like sense a lot of like honesty and vulnerability, and that's how marketing leaders support each other marketing leaders and how we learn, right? It's like nobody really cares about how awesome everything is, but you're probably proud of one or more areas, but what's the one that comes to mind is like your strongest, and the team would agree? And what would you guys claim to be like, this is what we're most passionate about?
Cool. Yeah. So I think, as I think about it, let's start with the weakest, because you show is on the strongest.
Yeah, you're Canadian.
So yeah, exactly. Let's start with let's end on a high note. I think probably our weakest point, or like our weakest part, is honestly with how quickly we've grown, with how much we're trying to accomplish. Probably providing future insights to our partners earlier on. So I think that's probably like to me, that's something that we're like, and I guess that's why like we're working on it currently. So maybe it doesn't feel as weak as it was, but I think that's something that we've probably been weak in the past, where, maybe that transparency piece is like, I think a lot better in the last 10 months. But it was a lot worse the 4 years previous to that. And so that was, and like it's grown, but are we where we need to be? No. And I think that would be probably kind of the weakest point is, it's sort of like, when you're at a restaurant and the waiter doesn't write down your order and you go, they're forgetting something for sure. I think that's kind of the piece where it's like, we know, like, I think a lot of times our partners know stuff's happening, but have we written down the order? Like, are they confident enough in that? And so I think that's just kind of probably better sharing on that point. Our engagement specialists have taken huge leaps in that. Our marketing specialists have taken huge leaps with this reporting. But I would say, like, personally, from my level, that's where I would like to have a little bit more, provide more insight to our teams further in advance. And so that's something that we're kind of working on now. I think one of our strengths has been, like, honestly, our ownership is like, it's just a huge kudos to them. Their ability to push and challenge to grow, and then support you in that growth. So, you know, it's always like, how can we do this better? How can you move this better? How can you, is this the coolest thing to do? Like, if it's not like, is this the cheapest or is this the coolest? The cheapest, why are we doing it? If it's the coolest thing, if it's on trend, if it's on brand, if it's like, then that's what we should be doing. You know, like let's focus on those pieces, and let's focus, and that's how we're going to grow. We're not going to grow by we're not going to grow by pinching kind of pinching pennies. And that might sound bad when you kind of go back to the budgeting conversation, but I think it's the support of challenging the status quo that I think is probably one of our strengths. And that honestly, just like, yeah, that's like above me and who I'm reporting to, being like our CEO Dave Orson, his ability just to kind of like put faith in the team and absolutely fully support when we come up with some, maybe unique ideas or challenging ideas. That's probably the strongest thing. That I think some companies are limited by the unknown.
You're fearful. You're fearful about putting yourself out there because you don't really have the support to fail. Right. It's where the best ideas happen, is when you feel safe to fail.
Absolutely, yeah.
All these stories you're telling me and these perspectives you're giving, I mean, it makes a lot more sense to me now. Because like OEB, again, it just seems weird or different. Like when you go in, it's like,
that's good.
There's something else going on here. I'm not sure what it is. Obviously, the culinary first, sort of that makes sense. That's palpable when you walk in. But it seems like people in there just like being a part of the brand. It's not like a job. And I'm not trying to like overinflate this. This is real, and there's something about it. So and it's probably because of that local focus. But like when you're talking about your weakness, if I was a potential franchisee partner listening to this, I would be very encouraged about the opportunity and the brand and being a business owner with this brand, because inadvertently or not, you just claimed your biggest weakness as being something that is totally focused on future looking success of your franchisee partners, right? Where like other times I'd say, well, our biggest weakness is like our email marketing strategy or whatever. And you've said everything's been focused on the franchise partners, local activations, local relevance, growing at the pace, transparency as it relates to reporting on where their dollars are going. I think those things contribute to an overall foundation of trust, because franchisee partners have lots of different brands that they can invest into, right? Different.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's pretty cool, man.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I hope they feel that way too. Like it's, I love our partners, and they're doing a great job. So yeah.
What couple more questions here? I mean, I wish we could talk for 2 hours on this, but a couple more. It's like when you sort of close your eyes and envision the next 5 to 10 years for the brand, what are some of the things that appear in clarity? Whether they manifest or not, doesn't matter.
Yeah. So I think for the brand, I think growth is a big one.
That one matters. That one matters if it manifests or not. But
yeah, absolutely. I think I see sort of like North American growth as being big, and that's probably not necessarily my vision, whether it be like a shared dream sort of thing like that. I think that is essentially the focus. And then honestly, the vision as a brand, from my perspective, I really see this focus, and I don't know if it's a refocus or just a focus on people. And I think that's huge. Like I really I'm seeing like I'm envisioning this world of we're continuing to push in 2 directions, and one is sort of this AI world, and I think as we push in that direction, there's going to be a huge appetite for human connection. And as a brand, I envision us leaning into that human connection piece, because the one thing we'll always need is we'll always need each other, and we'll always need food to bond over. And when you come into a brand that's so culinary focused, we always say the O in OEB stands for outstanding people. It's the first thing. Like, let's focus on that. And I think just highlighting the stories, we just have so many just cool people that are, living the brand within the community. And so like, how do we share their stories, tell those stories, and get deeper and deeper and deeper into that. And so that's sort of something that I kind of really envision for OEB, leaning into kind of what originally made us great. As we grow, this focus on staying small and to that community. So as best as we sort of can. Yeah.
That's great. Well, my last question here is I always like to, you can use names or not use names, but is there maybe one or two people that deserve like special recognition or shout out for on your team or at the brand? Because, outstanding people, staying with that theme, I'd like to get a little bit of platform for that.
Yeah, honestly, there's two that I gotta say. Chef Morneau, like he started this thing. You talk to him about OEB and his passion for it. Like, I do believe that, that feeling that you have is, this underlying belief in what he originally created and what he grew to be so wonderful. And I think like that's just something that it's special, and that's the feeling that we all get when we go into an OEB. It's the feeling that still emanates, throughout the brand, and it's what we all bought into, like from those from our franchise partners to our head office. Like that's what drives us forward is those honestly your initial conversations with Morneau, where he came from, how he started this thing and his vision for it. I think that's huge. And so as a marketer, my job or our job is just to do our best job of the best possible job of communicating that externally. Cool. And then I would say our CEO Dave Orson, like he works constantly to ensure that we're just executing at a constantly high level, guiding us through like the pandemic and doing his best to just keep whoever on he could keep on, to pivot where he could pivot, to kind of do whatever just to keep us afloat, then to come out of it and be able to figure out and find the support to be able to kind of grow us. I think when we grew 9 locations in 10 months or something like that last year, like it's just kind of amazing leadership. And if you talk to anybody in the brand, it's like Dave's the best. Like it just literally Dave's the best. And so I think he just deserves a huge a huge shout out. We always believe in sort of his work ethic, his vision, and at the same time makes you feel like he always just makes you feel appreciated. And he's like, if you're ever stressed, he's the guy to talk to. Yeah, he's got 100 more things going on than you do. So I think those, I think both of them together, just you got to kind of give props to both of them. So yeah.
Cool. Well, no, I love that. I love that you said part of your guys' established accountability as a marketing team is communicating with clarity the vision that's set out by Chef Morneau, and then you've probably borrowed leadership traits from what you've seen with Dave.
I hope so. If I have, I've done a good job then. Yeah, for sure.
Appreciate you being on the show, Teale. Everyone, Teale Orban, VP of Marketing of the best breakfast and brunch spot in the city.
Thank you so much. That makes me so happy. It just makes me so happy.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Okay, thanks.